Hello, welcome. My name's Stephanie Rierick. I'm kind of like the meta host of this session that is hosted by Pete Lawrence and Campfire Conversations. And this overall event that we're partnering as part of is called the Solidarity Summit. It's hosted by Humans United and Mutual Aid Networks. And what we are is a community of communities of practice working on redesigning the economy by redesigning our own work lives and those of people in our communities and in our interest areas. Our mission is to create means for everyone to discover and succeed in work they want to do with the support of their community. And we realize that a big part of what that involves is learning how to develop and nurture unintentional communities, meeting the neighbors where we are, and figuring out how to have healthy communication across difference in all kinds of ways. And that's one of the reasons we get ourselves to come out on this 25-degree Fahrenheit day and make a little fire in the parking lot. And we're serving hot drinks and some healthy muffins, and invited our immediate neighbors, and we'll use this opportunity to have people sign up if they want to create little care team mutual aid networks. And we're also working on building our Everywhere Gardens project. So the gardeners and the people who want to learn to garden and the people who have yards that they don't want to deal with can all connect, and we can start to regenerate our soil and water and communities and local foods and healthy ecosystems. So that's what we're all about, and super happy to be partnering on this. So this is our second day of the Solidarity Summit. I'll put a link in the chat so you can find more information. I know there's other campfire conversations happening too across the pond. So you'll hear lots of things that you can do and check out later. So for us, after this session, immediately following on the same Zoom channel, we're going to hear from our newest Humans board member. Actually, Gorac Norcik is in Slovenia and was living in Yugoslavia at the time when they were having beautiful experiments, or not experiments, beautiful like living situations and self-management and very pluralist living, and got dismantled via disaster capitalism, and he'll tell it in his own words. So we'll learn about that right after this session. Then we have a session from 3 to 5 Central Time, Chicago time. That's an exploration of the solidarity economy principles with a guide, so you can take that conversation into your own local community. And then last and definitely not least, at 5 o'clock Central Time, we're going to hear from our friends in New Zealand, where there's a ton of amazing living economies, mutual aid work going on. So we have a packed day, and we're really excited to be here with you. And now I am going to turn it over to the wonderful Pete Lawrence. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Stephanie. A lot to live up to there. Thank you for your introduction. It sounds like we're very much aligned in terms of what we're doing and what we're aiming for. And it's a real pleasure to have been invited to link with you for this Solidarity Summit. So the title of our session is What is the Common Good? It's interesting that you're looking at realigning community and economics. Maybe we can have another look at whether we can realign what the common good is really about in this session. There are different lenses and different ways of looking at this. And I was prompted by a post by one of the Campfire syndicated writers. We have several syndicated writers that we copy the works of with their permission. George Monbiot, who's a well-known green activist and campaigner for climate breakdown, and the Guardian writer, is one of them. Daniel Pinchbeck, Kate Rayworth, the author of Donut Economics, and various others, but Billy Bragg, the folk singer and activist, is one of them. And it prompted me, his article on Campfire prompted me, where he said the concept of the common good, the notion that we may have to do some things we don't want to do in order to achieve a greater goal, is anathema to libertarians. Curiously, I think progressive and traditional left of centre thinkers are often the ones now advocating and conforming to the government and official mainstream media narrative around COVID vaccination compliance, around passports, and even sometimes around mandated injections. So it was this in particular that I wanted to invite you to focus on, if that's the sort of focus you feel is appropriate to the subject. But really, this is about freedoms, and again, it's a word that's been bandied about and associated with the alt-right, associated with the Conservative Party in England. So I'd be interested in examining what freedom is about as well. But how many freedoms do we need to sacrifice for increasingly divisive systems, which seem to be rapidly breaking down society rather than working for the good of humanity? And a few examples I noted are perhaps creating communities, one of our most important priorities at the moment. Raising awareness of the mass formation taking place. Matthias Desmet did a brilliant talk on this. He's done several interviews, but one with the Peak Prosperity channel a couple of weeks ago, which is important viewing, I think. Shifting levels of consciousness, challenging government narratives are all valid examples of working for the common good. One example, Campfire's been a hotbed on our Facebook group, which in many respects isn't the heart of Campfire, but it's been a hornet's nest of people's opinions, people arguing, people discussing, some people being emergent in terms of where they are on this journey, which the COVID reactions have brought into sharp focus. I just wanted to quote one as an example of, because he quotes something around the common good in there, but good grief, follow science, you bunch of fucking bellends. You're the reason people are dying. Shame on you all. Pete Lawrence, you're a massive disappointment. Think of the greater good. I'm sorry for the foul language, but I'm sick of the bollocks. This is, to me, a good example of the anger that's coming up as people are facing up to this. But I'm trying to let this sort of stuff bounce off me in many ways, because if I take it all to heart, it would have quite a major impact on me on various levels. So how do we deal with this anger? How do we deal with this sort of reaction to what's going on? Some people who are already invested in the vaccines and the boosters and everything are perhaps beginning to question them. You know, COVID is more prevalent than ever before. With the new strain, it brings all sorts of questions up for me. I phoned my daughter yesterday. She said, Dad, I've got COVID. I said, are you in bed? She said, no, I'm all right. It's just like a mild cold. And my boyfriend's got it, and about half my friends have got it. Most of the people at work have got it. So this is London. If that's an indication of what's coming, and it is for fit people a mild cold or a little more than that, then that changes the whole game, really. So in terms of the common good and going around along with the narrative, you know, how relevant will that be in a couple of months? And how much should we be challenging the narrative, and to what extent can leeway be given to those to move into their own sovereignty about what they do in terms of their choices? But more importantly, you know, what's the effects of the authoritarianism that's coming in? Is that for the common good? Is that damaging society? We can do better as society than the way we've responded. So I guess I'm asking some questions. What does the common good represent for you? What can we each do to make the changes we feel are best for us collectively? And for me, at the heart of Campfire's ethos, and certainly my own, has been that move. How can we move from a society that values the what's in it for me, Jack, narrative, to one where we put the good of all and the good of the planet, the common good, at the forefront? So what we usually do on our Campfire sessions are just go around the group and have a quick introduction, to a check-in, really. How you're feeling, what's arising for you. If you'd like to bring this subject into that check-in, then that's great. If not, if you want to hold it back and just talk about the fire you're lighting or how you're celebrating solstice or anything else, you're warmly invited to just talk for a couple of minutes on how you're feeling. And the way we usually do it is to raise a digital hand, like, I'm just trying to find it, raise hand, like that, so we know if you want to talk. So if everyone's happy with that way of proceeding, would somebody like to raise their hand and go first with a check-in? Okay.
Well, hello, everybody. I'm in Silver Spring, Maryland, just over the line from Washington, D.C. Usually, I'm the only U.S. participant in these things, so that's pretty wild. I may have to leave early because there is a visual performance coming on from England that I found out is not going to be saved, archived, or repeated. So apologies in advance for that. On January 6th of this year, the United States was in real danger of becoming an outright authoritarian dictatorship. And I don't think that had a lot to do with the pandemic. That had to do with the right wing, whatever you want to call them, over here. And I have been vaccinated twice. I probably will get a booster. This really, I'm not a libertarian. I'm a militant environmentalist. And, you know, in that sense, I probably would support restrictions on people's rights to have large private vehicles, oversized houses, things like that. And you know, I don't care if people run down the street naked. That's not going to harm anything. But regarding the environmental thing, we are in danger of losing a lot of stuff permanently, you know, drowning of coastal cities and endangered species, all that. And although governments are a very imperfect mechanism, private enterprise is absolutely not going to solve the environmental crisis. Meanwhile, I'm a music journalist. I still have a high passion for that. And I've known Pete for over 30 years. So next.
Would you like to hand on to someone? We've got 5 people currently not on screen. So I don't know if you want to show yourselves and say hello. Anna, Jack, Nick, Karen, and Michael. It'd be nice to see you if you're around. So we can all have a session. But if you'd like to hand on to someone, Ken, pass the baton.
Well, Stephanie in the United States. All right, you go now.
All right, so we'll do the whole Madison cohort then. So I'm Stephanie Rierick in Madison, Wisconsin, U.S. And I'm really happy that we're having this topic as part of the Solidarity Summit and just doing mutual aid work. So much of what we need to do is to figure out how to communicate with one another across difference, and also just learn about our history of being divided and conquered. So we always talk about being for the 100%. So I'm kind of like introducing the project as well as myself. I also do music, and I just really want everybody, including myself, to be able to do what we actually want to do with our time here on Earth. And in order to do that, we have to figure out how to live amongst each other. All right, who wants to go? Do you want to go next, Randy, and go around this way?
Sure. Hi, my name's Randy. I'm here in Madison with Stephanie, and I'm just thrilled to be part of this international event. We got our campfire going here, and it's 29 degrees in Wisconsin, and I'm just thrilled to learn things have to change, and I think we're on the right path here in terms of learning not to have everybody need.
Oh, very live, aren't we? Would somebody else like to continue? Let's see if they come back in. Chris, do you fancy picking up the baton?
Yeah, I think to me the big event of the week was the passing of a writer called Bell Hooks, who wrote all about love, and she wrote that to response to the guy that ran the Different Drum and A Road Less Traveled, Scott Peck. And very much he talked about the loss of civility, and Bell Hooks picked up on a lot of these themes and sort of expanded them, so that I think what she'd done was help us to love properly. And if love is not at the forefront of all our actions, it just falls on, sort of doesn't connect. And so after, so that's where I am, that I can only change the world or change my surroundings if there's love in my heart and love for the creation, which is, all around us, that we tend to take for granted but don't acknowledge. So yeah, so I will pass to Karen Crozier.
Thanks, Chris.
I'm eating, and I guess I could stop, and or I can pass it on to somebody else until I'm ready to talk. And I think I'm going to pass it on to somebody else until I'm finished eating to be present. Thank you, Chris. I'm going to
Okay.
pass it on to. I appreciate especially the comment about Bell Hooks. Just to speak. Well, I guess I'm speaking. Yes, her commitment, passion, creativity.
Maybe we should go back to Stephanie and Randy and crew who are halfway through their introduction. Randy, do you want to pick up what you were saying?
Wait a minute, Peter.
Thanks.
Well, I was.
Sorry about that. I'm excited to hear the rest of what you're gonna say. And here's Ian.
Hey, yeah, I'm Ian here in Madison. Really excited to be with y'all around the world and here around the fire. And that's really all I have to say. Would you like to say anything, Lisa?
Love the black microphone ball. Hi, my name is Lisa. I'm with the Mutual Aid Network Co-op here in Madison. I'm the secretary of the board and have a couple projects, Everywhere Gardens and also 608 Arts, projects dedicated to using community and outreach and cool stuff like gardening and art to bring people together. And I love these summits. Thank you everyone for joining and participating, because I always learn an amazing amount. So thank you all for being here.
And Randy just made a coffee run, so he'll be back in a minute. Back over to you. So yeah, whoever wants to take the mic next.
Okay, so we've got Ardell and Nikki. Would either of you two like to come on and say how you're feeling? Check in.
Hi, Pete. Thanks. Sorry, I was late. I went into the wrong Zoom meeting. So I don't know. Is it just introductions?
Yeah, we're just doing a check-in for 2 or 3 minutes. How you're feeling? I don't know if you caught my introduction about what is the common good, but we'll have plenty of time to talk about through. But it's more about introducing yourself and how you're feeling.
Okay, thanks. Sorry, I'm in Nottingham in the UK, and it is amazing to see people. I love the fire from Wisconsin. Thank you so much for that. I feel kind of beautifully warmed and suitably kind of cold as well, which is lovely. What I am feeling, I think the common good is an amazing theme. I really appreciated the essay that you'd posted, or the essay series by Paul Kingsnorth. And that spoke to me so deeply, because I feel that these are different narratives that that I've never known a time like this. Obviously, none of us has, where my being is kind of swapping between the narratives. I don't know which is my truth or what there isn't a truth, it's where is my truth sitting, which I'm normally I'm a midwife, I'm an independent midwife, so I spent the whole of my working life being outside the mainstream and being absolutely fine with that, and it's not a problem. But it just seems that I don't know what is best for the common good. That is what I want, but to thine own self be true also feels to me as if that is for the common good. If we're true to ourselves, that cannot be bad for others, because there is this deep connection between us, and it doesn't feel as if the mainstream narrative is for our common good. So I will love to hear what other people say, and thank you for organising that, Pete. Leave it there. Thank you.
Thanks, Nikki. And I've just posted the link to presumably what you're talking about was the interview he did for Peak Prosperity, which I'd really recommend as an online channel. Chris Martin is the host, and the interview link is posted there in the chat. So just looking, Adele, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, thanks. Yeah, Pete, thanks for mentioning the Donut Economics by Kate Raworth. Also, I wanted to just quickly say to Karen, I don't know if you noticed, you might not have realized your screen froze. And so then other people started talking, and I thought you might have felt like people were cutting you off. So I just wanted to mention that is what seemed to happen from our end. And maybe we can go back to you next if you're ready. So I'm as I listen to people sharing their feelings about being in this moment of this, the already present polarization in our politics, sort of COVID coming into and starting to align with that, and it helps to solidify something that's long been a theme for me, is that government cannot solve these issues for us, and we need these local solutions. And I'm really grateful to Solidarity Summit, for Stephanie especially, and all the energy she puts into it, because it's the kind of thing that's helping to create those local solutions. And I think I've noticed that I can get along with both camps just fine, as long as I'm in a space where I'm just allowing them to. It's a privileged space because I'm healthy. I can, and yet I still have to be careful, because I could be a carrier, a very effective, I could be a carrier. And so I have to, if I want to be in vulnerable groups with people who feel vulnerable, I have to be very cognizant of when and how I approach them. When I've been recently with others who are going dancing and not wearing masks, and so far that's, and with my daughter attending school in person. But to me, that seems, it's been workable, and without being angry at other people's solutions and how they choose to work theirs. I hope that that's a path that we can work towards. That's all, thanks. Maybe Karen, back to you if you're ready.
Thank you, Ardell, for the risk you took in the space. However, from my experience, no, I was cut off by Pete. And Pete also, my experience being muted in the space. And Pete did not ask me, Karen, do you want to, can we go back to, the question was not asked, it was just, I experienced being cut off.
So, you're coming through as very muffled, and I thought you were saying you were eating, so passed it over.
Again, Pete, you interrupted me, and can everyone hear me now? Yes. No, I was talking and had moved into appreciating Chris's comment about bell hooks. And so therefore, and I was finished, I was still talking and you just went back to the other way. And so I was not inquired about it. So I'm just naming my experience of the moment and wanted to put that out in the space. And thank you, Ardell, for, and it was never brought back to me. Karen, are you ready to go now? You went on to others instead of coming back to me, if that's what you felt. So, yes, I'm Karen. You're not the only one from the US. As well, I am in Fresno, California, which is right in between LA and San Francisco, which is on the Yokuts land. And first time attending this space and looking forward to whatever other ways that we can be intentional and aware of the ways that we're loving, as was identified by Chris, in light of the passing of Bell Hooks and the ways that she showed up in the world as a Black feminist, cultural critic, committed to love and a strong social political ethic in the ways that she taught her students, the ways that she taught those of us who live on the margins of society in prisons, the underclass, the outclass, and to help them find a voice in the world in the many ways that they are neglected and abandoned by our government. So thank you, and I will pass it on to Nick Stoko.
I don't know if you can hear me. I am here, just lurking because I've never been to one of these and I am just getting the hang of what's going on really. I don't really have much to add to the discussion at the moment, so I'll just keep it really short. Thank you.
Thanks, Nick. A profuse apologies to Karen. My internet is fading in and out, so what I heard of what you said was that you're eating and you couldn't talk. So apologies if I misread that. I'm hoping the signal stands up here because I'm hoping everyone can hear me because it's people are fading in and out. I was going to ask Nick to pass on, but Jack, are you there?
Yes, hello, I'm here.
Hi.
Sorry. My internet is not so great as well, so I turn off the camera so I can hear you better. But yes, hello, I'm Jack. I'm originally from New Zealand, but I'm now living in France. I'm a philosopher. I'm doing a thesis on political ecology. And how am I? I feel a little bit confused because I think I'm in a world that doesn't make much sense. And I think I'm spending a lot of time and energy trying to understand things that are going on. And at the end of the day, I think I'm not going to be able to understand them. And that's not a fault of me, that's a fault of the world that we are living in. So I'm here hoping that we can discuss more what the common good is. Because I think that we did have a definition of the common good And so we're always able to apply tests and say, is this the common good for you? Yes, no. Seems like it's the same thing for everybody, so let's go. But now we're not at that point where we can have that discussion on a large scale, and I don't think we have a clear vision as a society of what that common good is to be able to try and go for it. So that's my initial thoughts. Nice to meet all of you, and I don't know if there's someone else who wants to introduce themselves who hasn't been.
Thanks, Jack. So we have Kate, Michael, Gorads. Any of you there? Would you like to come in at this point? Michael's saying not in a position to participate at this time. Anna is lurking at the moment.
Okay.
Gorads, hi.
So, hi, I'm Gorads. I'm from Slovenia, and I was a little bit late. Couldn't make it sooner. Had a longer conversation. About private property, not about common property. I'm looking forward to hear what everybody has to say about this topic. I will have a short introduction later on about what happened in Yugoslavia a long time ago, where everything was kind of a common good, and it was shared. And we'll see what happened, how it happened, what was good, what was bad. A little bit of, but this is my personal view of what is going on. So otherwise, I'm involved with humans. I work on concepts of reciprocity loop, how to actually work in a way that benefits everybody, not just a few. We are working on a software and on theoretical concepts and stuff like that. But that's a bit later about this. So, who's next?
Well, I think we've gone around everyone now.
Okay.
I'll go.
Kate, hi.
Yeah, sorry, I'm late as usual. I just pulled over so I could just say hello. Yeah, I have to say, apart from the subjects of the conversation, I'm just really happy that two of the networks that I'm part of are joined up. So I'm part of Humans. We're a sister site in East Riding of Yorkshire, and also on the working board, and then also I'm a regular participant on the Campfire Sunday sessions. So just listening to other people introducing themselves, it's like, yeah, it's like, actually, I think I've stopped trying to work out trying to look as if anything makes sense whatsoever. And I would also say I feel confused. I think my way of dealing with that is doing what I can do in the work that I do, and stepping outside narratives that are out there. I feel like I've checked out of all the narratives, but I've not got I'd go along with what Chris is. It's like, and you know, what we often talk about is like starting with love and compassion, and how we can come in a place to these polarized viewpoints. It feels like that's helpful to the status quo. So I'm interested in how we bridge those polarized narratives as well. So yeah, lovely to be here. I'll just start driving again and I'll be with you properly in a few minutes. Okay.
Thanks very much, Kate. Yeah, and good to see some of our regulars here, made it across to the other channel. And yeah, to pick up on that point, the Love is the Answer was a project Campfire was involved in, which was a music track we did last summer for Solstice, which was combining various vocal contributions from around the world. And pushing the message around love, which really is often the solution to any of these things. But it does feel very polarized to me, far more so even than Brexit or possibly even the Trump era. That era is probably still not over, but who knows? I wanted to pick up on Nikki's point actually about being true to ourselves is, for her, is the common good. Is there anything you wanted to say around that? Because to me, it seems very much that that's one way of looking at the common good, which isn't necessarily selfish. And people who want to label those who aren't going along with the narrative often accuse those who are challenging it of being selfish. I just wondered if you wanted to expand on that.
Oh, thanks so much, Pete. I've been thinking so much about this because as a midwife, my whole identity is about helping other people. Or we have a concept of autonomy in midwifery, which is that we have autonomy to take our own decisions, but we also, that means assisting or facilitating other people to take their own decisions that are right for them, and they might not be right for us. So it is a boundaried kind of autonomy. So it's not saying that what is good for me is, so there are boundaries. I see it's complicated but being true to myself does not mean that I want to cause anybody else any harm. It's the exact opposite. But I'm being given this narrative that if I suppose the one that's really upsetting me is about the vaccines and vaccine mandates, and it's sort of that's being selfish if you don't do this thing. That's immaterial whether or not I have had a vaccine. It is about that narrative that feels and that's not my experience of what being true to myself is. It is, if I do something that isn't true to myself purely for someone else's benefit, that cannot ever benefit them actually, because there's some deep principle at stake, which is about oh gosh, I don't know what it is. Love, I guess, but I don't quite know. That's what I'm exploring. So I'd really love to hear what you think about that, or other people. But how does being true to ourselves, does that always mean being loving to other people, or do we sometimes have to betray what feels like betray ourselves? Can that be good for others? I'd love to know what other people think.
Anyone could raise their hand if they'd like to pick up from there.
I think that if we're doing something from a place that doesn't feel authentic, but it's just out of a sense of guilt or obligation, I feel like that just, I agree, that can't really be the best answer, because it just leads to a lot of groupthink, where you don't get the contribution of the experience and perspective of the group. You just end up following, giving all the power away to whoever has, maybe whoever is most forcefully or aggressively spreading a message of fear. I think it's right to step back and see where can we follow a course of action that might be in alignment with those messages, but only once we find in ourselves that we can do it from something that both feels right and we can, that logically coheres. That's all.
There is an element of, as I mentioned earlier, mass formation, which Matthias Desmet is basically saying that there is a cult which is now the majority of people, and there's a certain amount of brainwashing going on there. I don't know if anyone here has heard what Desmet is talking about there, but it's certainly worth investigation.
Maybe we could raise a hand.
Hey, yeah, I just wanted to respond for a moment to the previous question. I was just thinking that it seems really hard to, thinking of the common good right now, what comes immediately to mind is like all these really, just the drastic state that we're in, like, the planet being precarious and then COVID, like, those kind of answers to those kinds of questions seem like a little bit clear, like, that we should be doing everything we can to be taking care of the planet and to be reversing the damage we've done to it, and we should be doing everything we can to make sure everyone is safe with the resources that we have from diseases and viruses that hurt each other. But it seems once you kind of pull it out of that place and think a little bit more broadly, it does seem like it becomes a lot more I don't know if ethereal is the word, like, it's really like how do we determine what are people's needs and what is good for everyone. So that was just a thought that I had about that.
Can I put my hand up next? I don't see what other hands there are, so tell me if yeah, so one of the things that caused me to think of is just just like with the trashing of the planet and everyone knowing we need to stop, because we have systems that are completely controlling the information flow, especially now more than ever, and we have sort of this polarization, so we don't communicate face to face, and we're kind of like being told not to. Like the constant message is to shut each other out. Like our president is up there saying, "Oh, we're all getting really frustrated with the unvaccinated," and they've said, like, from the top of our government, that it's time to start shunning people who choose not to receive a vaccine. And like, if like I shared something about the mass formation on Facebook, and someone wrote something about how that shows that I'll never be taken seriously about anything ever again, and like unfriended me instantly. And it's like, that's what the point of this is like the stopping of communicating. So anyway, I mean, it's just like most of the destruction that's being carried out of the planet, like the really wholesale sort of systematic destruction, is people who are hired or indentured to do so. We have to walk out of that, and it's that's why we're working on building the different ways of doing things. I mean, there's plenty of work to do, and there are plenty of solutions that we know about, and it's like our governmental institutions that should be there to facilitate that are preventing it at this point. Because we, if we can't have all the information to know what really is the best way to protect everybody's health, because we can't actually communicate about it and share the variety of information we're receiving and seeing. So I'll pass.
Yeah, I think your point about can governments be trusted to make the decisions? Certainly in the UK, we've had various movements coming through. I often mention the flat pack democracy movement, which is about taking control of local councils. Frome, the place I lived in, Somerset, was very instrumental in doing that. And it was astonishing to see all the major parties effectively kicked out of the way of managing the local authority in Frome. And it was a good example of a way of doing it at grassroots level, where there wasn't a top table. Everyone was involved in the decision-making process, or as much as that was possible. But are there ways of getting around those who will not listen to or engage in conversation? That, to me, is one of the major questions at the moment. If it's going to work for the common good, and some people are just closing down conversation, how do we move forward from that?
Hi, this is Randy from Madison. I just wanted to comment that I think one of the underlying assumptions I think that floats out there is that behaving in the interest of the common good means everybody has to be doing the same thing. And I don't think that's the case at all. I think we're all called to do different things in different ways, and it's the sum total of those actions that can work. I mean, I think obviously we all have to be coming from a place where we care about the earth and the people around us. But there are some people who are musicians and are justified in traveling because of the nature of their art. There are other people who are, farmers. I think the point is that we're all different, and we can all be true to ourselves. And if the communication is there, you can balance it all out. I guess my big thing is the message seems like, oh, well, in order to save the world, we all have to do this. And I just think that is a red herring that moves us away from a solution. So.
Yeah, thanks, Randy. And yes, it is. So much of this is about the message, isn't it? And if you look at the mainstream media across the world, even a paper like The Guardian, traditionally regarded as quite left-wing, liberal, whatever, progressive, I've rarely seen a single article really challenging the narrative around COVID and its reactions. It's propaganda, really, is the word that springs to mind. Does anybody want to pick up at this stage?
Well, here I am. The way the commons good are explained in the mainstream, it's through this disaster that happens because we will not be able to manage the common good. This Harding's paper written in 60 something is still used as an example what happens when you leave the people to manage the commons good. And for some strange reason, the so-called Nobel Prize for Economics that was won in 2009 by Elinor Ostrom is somehow disappeared from the narrative completely. But it is precisely what he said, that this common movement, what you have to do to preserve the common good, is precisely that each of us has to do different things, not the same thing. And this comes from a simple principle that I'm talking all the time about, is that we need to understand that human culture, human civilization, human group are something that physicists called complex adaptive systems. And these complex adaptive systems behave very, very differently of what, for example, economics tries to explain. It's not linear, it's completely almost chaotic, but with the rules that are hidden underneath this so-called chaos. And we have to, if there is one chance that we have as a commons movement, is precisely this notion that the whole civilization is standing on a hierarchical structure, and hierarchical structures are prone to collapse. And all we need to do is to be able to organize ourselves in this chaotic way and take care of stuff that we can take care, and at the same time putting sand in the engine of the big guys, something like that.
I like the analogy of sand in the engine. we had a talk in through by Khan Ross. I don't know if he's a name familiar to anyone here, but he was talking about anarchism, and it was really my introduction to anarchism. And I just wonder how much the concepts around anarchism might figure in what you're talking about with the commons movement. It's really, it's doing away with the hierarchical structure as the first pretext. Adele.
Thanks. I have a lot of resonance with what Gorzad spoke of, the importance of organizing ourselves non-hierarchically as we see the decay of the hierarchical institutions around us. I am not sure about, and I'm leaning toward disagreeing with the idea of putting sand in the engine, because what I've seen in many instances in the past is that actually just reinforces the narratives that that we are trying to change. And it, in many cases, for example, I'm thinking of, I mean, there are countless examples that come to my mind, but one, for example, the Weather Underground, that came up in something I was seeing yesterday, so it's most salient for me. That they, in their violent method of trying to resist the war in Vietnam, it actually, the South Vietnamese actually asked them to stop what they were doing because it was creating actually more of a backlash pro-war sentiment. So I have come to conclude that for myself, it's important to find ways where I'm proactive in what I want to see and avoid being reactive or resistant or fighting the things that I don't agree with. That's all.
Thank you. It's a very good point. It brings to mind for me the Extinction Rebellion tactics and some of the recent discussions around James Brown climbing up on top of an aeroplane at London City Airport and going to jail for it, or protesters sitting down on the M25 motorway. And some of the people who were marginal have since come out to say this isn't working as a tactic because you're losing the hearts and minds of the majority. But did Extinction Rebellion ever have the hearts and minds of the majority? So I guess you're getting towards a position where we should be building something positive as a new structure rather than putting the sand in the engine.
I'd like to respond for a moment if I can. Just having been involved a little bit in activism this summer about stopping Line 3 in northern Minnesota, I just like to point to the way in which that particular perspective just presented is from a kind of privileged point of view, that people who are directly affected by in this case Line 3, the Anishinaabe in northern Minnesota, whose livelihood and way of life depends so much on the wild rice and the habitat up there, that they're they will be directly affected and immediately affected once a pipeline ruptures. So just to keep in mind that when considering the idea of putting sand in the engine of people who they don't really have a choice in terms of protecting their way of life. And just I've heard other people express that sentiment of like wanting to be, I guess, constructive versus destructive is the way I've heard it, and I think that it doesn't take, like, having that point of view doesn't take that into account. So I just wanted to add that. Thanks.
Thank you. Adele.
Thanks. I really agree with that idea that resisting when your own or the rights of others you're in solidarity with, when those are in danger, and I don't think there's one right answer for all people at all times, and I wholly support the idea of an extreme pacifist stance. I'm not sure that always works, but definitely what I was trying to speak more to is, we need to have boundaries, but not, just making sure that we're very clear about that we're not going out to make a preemptive strike, right? But I'm fully in a line and supportive of defending the rights of others and ourselves. Thanks.
Yeah, I wonder where on the scale, sitting on Westminster Bridge and taking it over, which was the first act of Extinction Rebellion, where that scores in terms of disrupting the lives of those who can't get to work, and how that plays into what you're saying. And also the alarm bell ringing that some people are doing with COVID vaccines, and the authoritarianism that's flowing through from that. I don't like using the word flowing because it feels very jagged to me, but those who are on the sharp end of the segregation that's occurring, and what do they do about it? Is there a way of protesting to those people who feel marginalized? Is that coming from a position of privilege, or I'm confused? So I'm looking for any feedback from people in terms of what they feel about mandations around segregating society around vaccines, and whether the new strain will almost make that redundant, whether, as people are saying, it's more like the common cold, whether that will change the whole picture.
Are we talking about still about this sand in the engine, or are we moving now to COVID? Because it's there are two things. I just got a book, I haven't read it yet, from Andreas Malm, with the title "How to Blow Up a Pipeline," and it's been talking precisely about these questions, because he says whatever we did until now didn't work. We are still heading way directly to the hell. So we have to do something different. And this 100% pacifist way didn't work, period. And so what do we do? Blow up a pipeline or something else? So what I was, when I said sand in the engine, I was, it's, of course, you can do that precisely in the literally, or you can just you just go and shop, not in I don't know big supermarkets, but you shop in a pop and mom stores in in the neighborhood. You don't go and buy stuff from Monsanto and Bayer and things like that, but you do it different. That's also something that you can do. But this is all. It's of course has to be done, but it is not enough. What I think we need is alternative to this system. What is the alternative? And this alternative has to be clear and simple and adaptive to different cultures, to different circumstances. And this is precisely where this previously mentioned complex adaptive systems approach comes into the power, because you can do the same thing in a very, very different way. So you can put a sand into the engine in a very different ways. It is the same with COVID. One of the things that Desmond said is that the problem is that even if we wake people out of the hypnosis, they will fall into another one because they don't see the alternative. So basically, what we need to do is to give them alternative, and you can give people, but beside that alternative, you have to give them also the purpose, what to do with your life. What is the purpose of your life? Once you given that to the people, then there is no stop. You don't need empowerment, you don't need organization. Just teach them how to be in work in a local environment and do that. And I would like to know more about what happened in that city that throughout the parties. I would like to do something here as well to test that. Okay, here's one.
Yeah, I guess the 2 points meet in, as you put it, whatever we did didn't work, which was the text of the book you quoted. And I guess that's where the COVID response and the response to breakdown of climate or anything else converges. Ken, can you unmute, please?
Someday I'll get used to this. Anyway, this is also very, very difficult. I no longer have much patience. I turned 70 in October. I don't think I'm going to live to see improvements. That's very hard to accept. You know, in this country, in the United States, capitalism is so dominant. The fossil fuel industry has so much power, and most people either drive or want to, and suburban sprawl continues and all these things. And, you know, for 4 years, we accelerated in the wrong direction under he who I do not have to name and his enablers and accomplices. And unfortunately, you know, Brazil has one just like him. And there's Boris Johnson, and there's the entire Chinese government, and Vladimir Putin, and all the rest of them. I just feel so overwhelmed. And in this country, you know, some people on the quote unquote left are saying, well, you've got to learn how to understand the Trump supporters and give them time. And then there was another thing posted on that font of all wisdom Facebook from some college professor who said, well, you can't have rapid change. It's going to take 2 or 3 generations. And we don't have 2 or 3 generations to prevent mass extinctions, drowning of coastal cities, death of coral reefs, utter disappearance of rare ecological niches. I'm really at a loss. I don't have lots of money to donate to this politician or that nonprofit group. I don't know how differently this kind of activism, or whatever you want to call it, works or does not work in other places. It's just really, really hard. I'm gonna have to leave in about 10 minutes, you know, because I'm going to a virtual concert. But you know, sometimes I think all I can do is pass along information on my Facebook page about what's going on in addition to the music stuff. And, the only hope I really have does come from the young people involved in things like Extinction Rebellion. But because I've just turned 70 and, the COVID thing is, who knows what's going to happen with that. I am reluctant to go to events with large crowds. I haven't been to many indoor events in a year and a half. I haven't been very far from my own neighborhood. This is all so difficult to adjust to. When I ask people for review copies of CDs, I'm more often than not, I'm getting told downloads only. I don't care for that either, although I understand the rationale behind it. It's just everything has gone inside out and upside down. I suspect if we had somebody, I don't know exactly how to say this. Well, certainly if we'd had Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren in the White House, I don't think we'd be in the state we are now. But you don't really know. And it is very, very difficult to deal with all of this stuff. I do see how it all interconnects. But again, in the United States, a lot of people compartmentalize. Well, we'll solve poverty or we'll solve COVID crisis, but they won't see how it all fits together. That's very depressing. All right. Anyway.
If there are other hands up, they can go. I just can't see. Sorry, we're talking a lot over here.
Adele.
Okay.
No, you go ahead, Stephanie. I'll go next.
All right. So just, Ken, I just wanted to be like, yes, you will see change in your lifetime. But, I was, anyhow. The thing that I remember all the time is rapid change happens on a regular basis, very rapid, and often like way more rapid than we wish it would. Unfortunately, sometimes I'm like, my optimism is cleansing flood. Unfortunately, sometimes I feel like that's like the best hope. In the long range, my friend Steven, we did a roundtable about this recently, and he was saying dark will never win over light, because if the dark kills the light, then it eats itself. And so in the long run, in the very long run, there's hope. Everything changes. But part of, I didn't mean to be, it's sad when you're like, being a Pollyanna means being excited for a cleansing flood or an asteroid strike. But, at any rate, I just wanted to, I recently just had the little sort of realization that the pharmaceutical industry is the petrochemical industry, and they're like completely intertwined. Yeah, I mean, they're the same thing. So that was just a piece that was very interesting to me, and it's all the same system of globalized capitalism, multinational corporate domination, assertion of rights over the whole living system of the planet. And again, every epoch has ended. My friend Nicole Foss at the same roundtable that I'm referring to, which you can find from my website, but she was talking about how this is one of several cycles all coming to an end at the same time. And part of the reason dominant globalized capitalism is so mean and vicious right now is it is very late stage, and it is very close to the edge and has everything to lose, and we have to just make sure that we are creating the nets that catch us. And in my view, it starts with us and our communities, and not just our communities right around us, but it has to be there too, in my opinion, but our communities of people we relate to, of people who have similar interests and drives. So I'll pass it back.
Adele?
Thanks. I want to really echo what Stephanie said, and in responding to Ken's feelings of kind of almost despair at just the entrenchment of the just what seems to be evil. And I know that I've spent years, like really, I could say decades in that space, and I really can, I don't want to make light of it, because it can seem that so entrenched and so impenetrable, the forces that are dragging down everything that we see as beautiful and worthy of our care. But I've more and more tapped into not just those like TED Talks that are so glib and like, oh, the world is actually improving. Well, we know that it's not. I mean, this whole narrative of, well, look, we're bringing these people out of poverty every day. And the reality behind that is that they're measuring poverty by, what they're saying is bringing people out of poverty is bringing them out of their self-sufficient villages and into city slums where they might make almost $1 a day, but that's something that they can put on their ledger as an increase in income. And so they brought people out of poverty. Hooray. Well, I'm not meaning to, I don't agree with those sentiments. I know that there are super entrenched and powerful forces that are going against what we want to see in the world. But I tapped into, there are so many voices now. It gives me hope that people are seeing how fragile these authoritarian and just these institutional structures are. And I'm confident there's going to be this tipping point that we don't know what is coming. And Stephanie's talking about creating the nets that catch us, and the cycles that are coming to an end. And yes, we don't know. Meg Wheatley says, oh, it's hundreds of years into the future, just keep doing good. And that can feel so, we don't know the timing of it, but we also can't look back and say, oh, we failed. Like, look at the hippie movement. They wanted peace and love and they failed. Well, they didn't really fail, because their movement went underground, but what it is a continuation of is the intentional community movement. And that is thriving. It's not loud and it's not on the forefront of the news. And it's, to a lot of people, it's not sexy and like attention grabbing, but it's there. And they started something and they're winning. They're winning. That's small wins, but and it hasn't gone away, and it's gaining strength in ways that we aren't really necessarily going to be seeing as obviously as we see the forces that are so destructive. Thanks. Thanks.
And yes, very much I take some optimism from the underground, what's happening on the underground, sort of mycelial networks, to give it a nature analogy, that are forming and will blossom, will come through. And yeah, your point about the hippie movement as well, if you look at a lot of things now and how the world's been shaped, it's in ways that often aren't explicit. But also to come back to Garad's point about purpose, if we, each of us, finding how we can be the best versions of ourselves and finding that sense of purpose can be a big motivator in terms of seeing how these networks and movements are coming together, and it's finding ways of joining the dots. There's a lot going on out there, and yeah, like you, I think I share the sense that I don't know how or when, but this is all changing and very quickly. Ken, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I gotta go, but yeah, I just, in the United States, there's such an emphasis, or has been for a very long time, on the rights of the individual to attain conventional progress through the mainstream job and government system. And there's been, you know, so many people want the American dream, you know, the detached suburban house with the 2 or more cars in the garage and the manicured lawn all around it and all the accoutrements thereof. And I sit here as a never married person living in an urban area who does not drive, you know, looking at that and saying it's not sustainable. But how do you fight against the desire to have that stuff and all of the entities that profit from that lifestyle continuing? So yeah, you know, it's very hard for me to be optimistic. And on that flat note, unfortunately, I have to say, see y'all later. Be well, stay safe. Best wishes for the holiday season and the new year. And I'll probably see some of you at some of these other sessions over the next couple of days.
Enjoy the show.
Yes, thank you. And good luck in Wisconsin. And I don't know where you're from, Ardell.
Hi, Ken.
Yeah, take care.
Sending you a virtual hug. I think you make some brilliant points, and
okay.
Yeah, I'm sad with you. It's a hard world. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I can't. There are social events I can't go to because I'll start talking and I'll just get reamed for it, you know. So anyway, take care, be well, stay safe.
Bye, Ken.
Thank you, Ken. Yeah, I just wanted to start to pull a few threads together for what do people see as the common good? What's an example of the common good? What comes up for you as the things that we could be doing or should be doing? I don't like to should, but what can make a difference? For me, flat pack democracy is one example of that, and people speaking their truths, and people shining a light on some of the articles and features that have been mentioned, like Paul Kingsnorth. Would anyone like to go next on what can we do? What is for the common good?
Hi, this is Randy. Just a brief note, going back a little ways, talking about change and the pace. I just want to point out that in my experience, COVID is a perfect example of the radical change that can happen in a blink of an eye. I mean, I think people all of a sudden are aware that all of these structures that seemed immutable just went away overnight. And I think that's an opportune time now to start pushing for bigger changes, because people are aware things can change in a blink. That's all. Thank you.
And I feel like it's the first time that inertia has been on our side, actually. So it's a good moment to build on.
Worth bearing in mind that most totalitarian regimes burn themselves out very easily as well. There's also the feeling that further down this road we go, the more ridiculous it all seems. So without that sense of the absurd that's going on, that there's less likely to be big social change. Anyone else on thoughts on the common good?
Well, one common good for me, it's the planet. That's it. And I think you have it all in. Just quick remark on that. COVID opening up the new possibilities and the changes. Before COVID, maybe a year and a half before that, I got an idea. You know, what would happen if we people would simply stop working? If we would be able to organize and convince people, look, guys, we are the engine you are the fuel that runs the engine. And I wrote an article and I sent it to a few friends describing this idea to let's say that we create, I don't know, on a solstice, we don't go to work. We stop. Everything stops. The whole planet stops. And they say, well, that's impossible. You can't do that. It's not going. And then COVID comes, and precisely that happens. I mean, the whole planet stopped. So it is possible. So that's really, really a change. And yes, people are starting to realize that things can change. Now the problem is of course how to get them off the hypnosis. That's the issue. Okay.
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, I think one of the issues, especially as we're, the people here are drawn mainly from the USA or from Europe, is that we tend to forget too easily about the global South and how, America, Europe, and has shafted the people there. I mean, Chevron Oil Company have left a big, catastrophic environmental disaster in Colombia and elsewhere. And one of the things I'm aware of is that is the collective trauma that is in the West and the need to deal with that. I think Gabor Mate, when he had a talk with indigenous elders, I think that became, for me, indigenous elders, when they spoke, you knew they were telling the truth. And we're in a situation now where people can say, oh, it's not, wearing masks is against, my freedom. But on the other hand, they can then say, holding a protest, should be banned. And you get this mixed messaging in there. Now, whether mixed messaging has an origin, I don't know, but it spoils the narratives that we're trying to build that can, bring into, things like truth and hope into the situation. And I believe that, talking to people in the global South, being aware of, they're the ones that have been shafted, and they're the ones that are going to be needing a new home if global warming, sort of carries on. We need to work out the trauma within each one of us. I think we haven't really experienced oppression yet, but oppression will come if we get totalitarianism. And so we've all got a full-time job to, to bring about truth and love and justice, and to be able to pass that baton over to the generation behind us. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Anyone else with any parting thoughts? It's good to see Andrea. Looks like you're enjoying your dinner, Andrea, but you can't hear us.
Perhaps that is the common good. I'm on my phone, so I had to flick to see Andrea, but I think I nearly said that eating is eating together, eating as part of family. I mean, it's just a tiny thing, but we have to only have we have ourselves as embodied beings. We have our families, we have our connections, and I think that's what I feel that I have to just really try and stay in that moment for me. Today I'm just about to eat. I've been preparing the meal while we've been talking, and I'll be eating with my son, and I'm just going to really try and be in that moment with him, because that's what we have at this moment. So but I've enjoyed the session, and thank you for facilitating it, Pete, and for everybody else. I loved seeing, you know, seeing people in the States and everything. It's been brilliant. Thank you.
Thanks, Nikki. Yeah, I've really enjoyed the international flavour of the session as well. Adele.
Thanks. I just want to say briefly that I agree. Most of us have not experienced depression, but I just want to kind of point out as an ally that, you know, Karen could probably say otherwise, you know, and I just wanted to bring that out. Not that it's so tricky. It's so tricky for people that are in that space, because they don't want to complain, or they can come across as whiners, or just it's depressing, or just not going with the, you know, in a positive direction. And so I think it's important for others of us to just keep recognizing that, keep helping state that for them, so that they don't feel like it's always their job to say, well, wait a minute, I beg to differ. Thanks.
Thanks. Yeah, and oppression can happen on so many levels, and I think those of us who are perhaps on the receiving end of the discrimination that's been going on in certain countries. I know I've experienced it in Greece, where I've been locked out of everyday life effectively, is probably pales in comparison with a lot of oppression that's going on. So it's all relative. I'm not sure if anyone else wants to offer anything. I was going to finish with a Charles Eisenstein video that was made a week or so ago with John Hopkins, one of my favorite ambient musicians, about the better world that we all know is possible. As to finish on an uplifting note. Stephanie?
I just was gonna say bye from the Solidarity Summit before we sign off, and I put some links in the chat, and we'll be on this same Zoom channel. We'll just keep it on so people can keep chatting if you want to, and then we'll hear Gorat will be here. We will all participate in the conversation with Gorat after this. But thanks, it's been really lovely having our worlds collide, and I want to thank Kate again for helping make that happen, and thanks Pete, and thanks to everyone. It's been good to meet you all, and I hope we see each other again. Bye. And
yeah,
Thanks very much.
I also just wanted to thank everybody, and also take the opportunity to apologize for having indirectly cut off Karen, or having cut off Karen in any way, and that I really have appreciated everything that they've shared, that they express a certain sincerity that I think is really valuable. And also thanks for the folks who've uplifted Bell Hook's name. I've thought of her throughout this conversation, and in what she must have felt, you know, having you know, I guess I just have a sense of, you know, her work, not knowing how much she cared, like whether or not her work was finished, you know, dying within that, or yeah, I've just been thinking of her and mourning her loss. Thank you.
Thank you. Andrea, you have your hand up. Hello, Andrea. Can you hear us?
Hello. I'm just really delighted that I've managed to have a window where I haven't got lots of other people and I could actually join you for a little campfire get together. I've just been listening keenly, and I think for me it just is coming back as it does all the time to that Buckminster Fuller quote that says there's no point, something I'm going to misquote him, but it's like there's no point in fighting a system. The only thing you can do is create an alternative model which makes the other model obsolete. And I think you've been doing that, Pete, with Campfire, you know, creating alternatives. And that really is the only thing. We need a change in culture. I think there's a word for it. I think it's metanoia, means change in thinking. And we so desperately need a change in culture. And it has been going on since the 60s. And it is painfully slow. But I do genuinely believe that there is a shift happening, and that this is just the darkest days before dawn. The darkest days before dawn. And that's what I've got to offer you today as my sharing. And just remember, ask yourselves in these difficult times when you're stuck with a decision, what would love do? What would love do? Put your hand on your heart, ask what would love do, and see what the answer is. And I wish you all a very merry midwinter if you're in the midwinter, or whatever seasonal thing it is. And Pete, if you're in Devon, I'm going to be here till Christmas Eve at least, if you want to come to visit the lighthouse.
I'd love to see what you're doing. Thanks very much, Andrea. And fitting note to go out on. And thank you for the Buckminster Fuller quote. And what would love do, what would love say, which has been one of the themes running through our discussions on the Sunday sessions. So yeah, I'd like to extend an invite to anyone who hasn't had a look at our community. I've just posted campfireconvention.net in the chat. Be very welcome to come and have a look. There is an option to join without having to contribute if you're not in a position to do that financially, but all donations welcome. And thank you very much again to Steph and the Fireside crew for the invitation, and it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for everyone for your contributions.
Can I say something real quick?
Aaron.
Yeah. Can you guys hear me? Oh, can you hear me? Okay. Yeah. I'll make it really quick. I heard somebody say, was it Chris? I can't remember. This is my first time joining this. I heard someone say that we really need a solution that is simple. And I can't help but think that's going to be the answer going forward, because I feel like the thing that makes us lose hope the most is stagnance and not being able to take single steps forward in a good direction and feeling like we can't do anything. And basically what I've been doing lately, just talking with people door to door, seeing if they need any food, because I've had an absolute excess of food. And if they don't, I ask if they can contribute 2 hours a month to help distribute food to people in need. And 4 times out of 5, they'll say yes. And what I realize is almost everybody wants to help do good things for other people, because everyone thinks they are a good person, no matter what their political stance is, no matter what, like even if they are objectively bad people, they probably think they're a good person, which is the messed up part. But I feel like having a platform to offer a simple way for people to contribute like 2 hours at a time, because a lot of people don't have extra money. But the reality is that there's no scarcity of food or abundance. It's only distribution at this point. And people who are just have their head above the water are willing to give 2 hours of their time monthly. And I've been doing that in my neighborhood. And now we've got distributing like 1,200 pounds of food every week. And it's been really, it's given me a lot of hope personally. And just seeing somebody who has no hope to receive the food that they need and seeing their eyes light up just gives me hope. I just wanted to share that, because it's not that complicated on a small scale to do little things to get something, because it really is impacting people's minds, and that's the most complicated thing there is. pass.
Thank you very much.
It's nice meeting all of you. I'm gonna go to the fireside. I live in Madison. I'm gonna go with Stephanie and meet them in person out there. So thanks for letting me talk.
Enjoy your fireside. Yeah, I'll be doing the same. Thanks again to everyone. Thanks for your contributions. And I'm going to go out with Charles Eisenstein and John Hopkins.
Pete, I don't see it. Do we need to give you the sharing?
Tribe of people lived in a world far away from ours. Whether far away in space or in time, or even outside of time, we do not know. They lived in a state of enchantment and joy that few of us today dare to believe could exist, except in those exceptional peak experiences where we glimpse the true potential of life and mind. One day, the elders of the tribe called a meeting. They gathered around, and one of them spoke very solemnly. "My friends," she said, "there is a world that needs our help. It is called Earth, and its fate hangs in the balance. Its humans have reached a critical point in their collective birthing, the same point our own planet was at 1 million years ago, and they will be stillborn without our help. Who would like to volunteer for a mission to this time and place and render service to humanity?" "Tell us more about the mission," they asked. "It is no small thing. Our shaman will put you into a deep, deep trance, so complete that you will forget who you are. You will live a human life, and in the beginning, you will completely forget your origins. You will forget even our language and your own true name. You will be separated from the wonder and beauty of our world, and from the love that bathes us all. You will miss it deeply, yet you will be unable to name what you are missing. You will remember the love and beauty that we know to be normal only as a longing in your heart. Your memory will take the form of an intuitive knowledge as you plunge into the painfully marred earth that a more beautiful world is possible. As you grow up in that world, your knowledge will be under constant assault. You will be told in a million ways that a world of destruction, violence, drudgery, anxiety, and degradation is normal. You may go through a time when you are completely alone, with no allies to affirm your knowledge of a more beautiful world. You may plunge into a depth of despair that we, in our world of light, cannot imagine. But no matter what, a spark of knowledge will never leave you. A memory of your true origin will be encoded in your DNA. That spark will lie within you, inextinguishable, until one day it is awakened. You see, even though you will feel for a time utterly alone, you will not be alone. We will send you assistance, help that you will experience as miraculous, experiences that you will describe as transcendent. These will fan that spark into a flame. For a few moments or hours or days, you will reawaken to the beauty and the joy that is meant to be. You will see it on Earth. For even though the planet and its people are deeply wounded, there is beauty there still, projected from past and future onto the present as a promise of what is possible and a reminder of what is real. After that glimpse, the flame may die down into an ember again as the routines of normal life there swallow you up. But after each awakening, they will seem less normal, and the story of that world will seem less real. The ember will glow brighter. When enough embers do that, they will all burst into flame together and sustain each other. Because remember, you will not be there alone. As you begin to awaken to your mission, you will meet others of our tribe. You will recognize them by your common purpose, values, and intuitions, and by the similarity of the paths you have walked. As the condition of the planet Earth reaches crisis proportions, your paths will cross more and more. The time of loneliness, the time of thinking you might be crazy, will be over. You will find the people of your tribe all over the Earth and become aware of them through the long-distance communication technologies used on that planet. But the real shift, the real quickening, will happen in face-to-face gatherings in special places. When many of you gather together, you will launch a new stage on your journey, a journey that, I assure you, will end where it begins right now. Then, the mission that lay unconscious within you will flower into consciousness. Your intuitive rebellion against the world presented to you as normal will become an explicit quest to create a more beautiful one. A woman said, "Tell me more about the time of loneliness, that we might prepare for it." The elder said, "In the time of loneliness, you will always be seeking to reassure yourself that you are not crazy. You will do that by telling people all about what is wrong with the world, and you will feel a sense of betrayal when they don't listen to you. You might hunger for stories of wrongness, atrocity, and ecological destruction, all of which confirm the validity of your intuition that a more beautiful world exists. But after you have fully received the help we will send you, and the quickening of your gatherings, you will no longer need to do that, because you will know. Your energy will thereafter turn toward actively creating that more beautiful world." A tribeswoman asked, "How do you know this will work? Are you sure our shaman's powers are great enough to send us on such a journey?" The elder replied, "I know it will work because he has done it many times before. Many have already been sent to Earth to live human lives and to lay the groundwork for the mission you will undertake now. He's been practicing. The only difference now is that many of you will venture there at once. What is new in the time you will live in is that you will gather in critical mass and will each awaken the other to your mission. The heat you will generate will kindle the same spark that lies in every human being. For in truth, each one is from a tribe like ours. The whole galaxy and beyond is converging on Earth, for never before has a planet journeyed so far into separation and made it back again. Those of you who go will be part of a new step in cosmic evolution." A tribesman asked, "Is there a danger we will become lost in that world and never wake up from the shamanic trance? Is there a danger that the despair, the cynicism, the pain of separation will be so great that it will extinguish the spark of hope, the spark of our true selves in origin, and that we will be separated from our beloved ones forever?" The elder replied, "That is impossible. The more deeply you get lost, the more powerful the help we will send you. You might experience it at the time as a collapse of your personal world, the loss of everything important to you. Later, you will recognize the gift within it. We will never abandon you." Another man asked, "Is it possible that our mission will fail and that this planet Earth will perish?" The elder replied, "I will answer your question with a paradox. It is impossible that your mission will fail. Yet, its success hangs on your own actions. The fate of the world is in your hands. The key to this paradox lies within you, in the feeling you carry that each of your actions, even your personal secret struggles, has cosmic significance. You will know then, as you know now, that everything you do matters." There were no more questions. The volunteers gathered in a circle, and the shaman went to each one. The last thing each was aware of was the shaman blowing smoke in his or her face. They entered a deep trance and dreamed themselves into the world where we find ourselves today. Here we are.
Yeah, here we are.
Here we are.